Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Brian Beck. He helps executives make sense of AI, cybersecurity, and digital transformation. Works with mid-sized organizations to turn complex technology into practical results. So we'll understand from him why mid-sized organizations are under pressure to adopt AI, but every new initiative introduces cyber risk. So how to scale your organization without increasing cyber risk? What leaders miss when they treat cybersecurity as a cost center instead of a competitive advantage, and how to cut through the hype to find what actually delivers. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you, AJ. Appreciate it.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Brian. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about organizational growth without cyber risk, and we'll talk about much more. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Sure, appreciate it. I've been in the technology industry for 35 plus years. And, I pretty much grew up in it before dial-up internet was even a thing, dot matrix printers, all that kind of fun stuff. And I grew up with the first laser printers that developed into network systems and network administration, servers, this new thing at the time called the internet. And then we got introduced to the cloud, and sat through a presentation with Microsoft back in the day when the cloud was starting to become a thing. And they made it increasingly complicated to be able to understand what in the world was going on with all these pages of slides and diagrams. And ultimately, today, you can simplify it for it's a secure server over there. That would have been great about 20 or so years ago when they first tried to introduce it. But then moving into, the security aspect of things, because the more connected you are, obviously, the more risk is introduced. You can't shut off the cloud. So how do you secure people? What are best practices? These are things that affect not only business, but also family. So it's coming at you at the educational level. It's coming at you from the business level, from the personal level. So we got to be aware of it. How do we secure it? And when you talk to business leadership, for the most part, a lot of them abdicate that over to the IT department or their CIO, depending on the size and the structure of the organization, or somebody that they know, especially if you're talking about a not-for-profit, board members who think they know what they're doing. So trying to be able to help communities understand how do we do this strategically so it's not a sucking cost like it used to be viewed back in the day. Now it can be a strategic advantage that allows you to be able to scale. Take CPAs or financial firms, for example. Now you don't need to recruit just within your local community. If we scale this thing correctly and provide the best practices that could be available to you, then we can start to recruit the best talent to your organization, regardless of geography. That starts to become the competitive advantage and educational set that can help your organization not only grow, but discover new ideas. And then you leverage AI on top of it. And right now, with as fast as it's moving, it's difficult for especially leadership to be able to understand, what do I do? How do I do? What tool do I do within their organization? And a vast majority of their staff is already experimenting with different tools. And that's for a variety of reasons. So, I've grown up in the industry, evolved with the industry, love continuing to learn from leadership and industry and experts like yourself. I get different perspectives to be able to apply that for other organizational benefit.
Absolutely, Brian. You are an expert in this, and that is why we want to learn from you. Organizations will learn from you a lot of things. I want to understand from a small organization, mid-sized organization, as well as an individual. Means, should we think that there is something called cyber security? Why I ask this is almost, whenever you ask any individual, we say it's all up to, leave it all up to God. Because even if you think you are secure, you are actually not secure. An individual maximum has a antivirus. Beyond that, I don't know what they can do. Why? Because even bigger organizations, they are not secure, and they declare it very often that our system has been hacked. Millions of emails have been hacked. You know, all you can do is go and change your password, and that is what. And it's a template thing that they keep on repeating often and often. And all the messaging that we get is, if this organization who say that they have got so much of depth, they have the best of technology, they have the best of CTO, they've got the best of everything. If they cannot keep their own data safe and my data safe, how can I compete with them as either a small business, mid-sized organization, or as an individual? So when people talk of cybersecurity, isn't it? It almost sounds like utopia. And who finds utopia, Brian? Help us understand. Isn't it better to leave an organization, in the hands of God? Because God is much more trustworthy than any cybersecurity measures from a common person's or common business perspective, Brian.
Jay, I don't think I've ever heard it put quite into those terms before. You're not entirely wrong. The thing about cybersecurity, and the reason that a lot of organizations wind up having that breach incident, is because of either lack of oversight policy, how consistently they're reviewing their policies, but it also comes down to how tightly controlled they want to be able to maintain their systems, right? Especially in the SMB space, what you wind up happening is you've got SMBs that are growing up and they've got a mix of different tools that are in there. They're trying to cut costs, essentially, because they don't necessarily see the value in doing the right practices, especially when you're talking about not-for-profit organizations. They're very focused on being able to deliver their mission. And they also have a lot of board member oversight that continues to drive, here's what I do and you should do that too, whether it's right or wrong. And depending on, if they're the loudest voice in the room, or perhaps maybe even the most persuasive, then they follow that guidance, which could lead them in the wrong direction. You have a mix of organizational tools where you got some that are using Google, you got some are using Microsoft, they're using different tools for different reasons. You've got to develop standards and consistency across the board. You've got to educate your staff, keep your policies up to date. Especially on an annual review type of basis. Here's the tools we use, here's why. But then you've got to be able to hand that policy off to your IT organization or IT team, MSP, MSSP, call us whatever you want to call us. But in the background, your technology policies that you implement through either platform, Google or Microsoft, they're the two biggest ones that you're typically going to see out there, especially in the SMB space. But you've got to have technology policies that align with your HR and your educational usage policies. And if you're not going to keep up with those things, you create a gap. The bad guys on the outside leverage AI especially to be able to hyper speed up their efforts to be able to try to breach your system. And depending on what that gap happens to be, it's going to be faster or easier than others. And again, depending on your oversight and your continued routine review of your environment, you're continuing to create new gaps and new risk with new software, new tools. I don't like Teams. I'm going to use Slack. Why? I'm going to use the free version of this over this particular paid version. Why? And leadership does not like to have to invest in the day-to-day oversight of technology, and for good reason. Right? They're supposed to be focused strategically to the growth of their business. So that's typically what winds up leading to the notifications that even I receive that, oh, hey, you've been caught up in a breach because our system with a third-party tool, or our system through an HVAC system, or our system because of. It's a lack of standards, lack of gap, lack of oversight.
Absolutely. Let me understand this, from an expert like you, Brian, for my audience. For mid-sized companies, for companies, smaller companies, even individuals who have their own businesses. A lot of individuals have this growing organizations.
Mm-hmm.
How should we understand what are the threats today? Because there are so many different kind of words that it is difficult, related to, different sort of things. all related to cybersecurity. You know, earlier it was Trojan, nowadays it's pig butchering. I don't know, so many things, it becomes almost confusing for anyone. How do we know what are some of the threats which are prominent? And where is this threat coming on? Is it again coming from AI? Is it from individuals? Or is it like those conspiracy theories that you make the cure and you create the problem at the same time? First you introduce the problem and then you introduce the cure and you will be a rich man.
So part of the things, I mean, it is overwhelming, right? It is coming from every single angle. It's using different acronyms. There's different names for it. AI is being used to counter AI on both sides of the fence. So AI is used to be able to probe and try to find holes in your system and counter AI. And then at the same time, AI is being used to analyze what those gaps could be and try to close those gaps. So it's a constant battle back and forth. And depending on which tool you're using and the capabilities of that tool, then, you know, it's just going to speed up the battle between both sides. The biggest thing, probably the best thing that you can do, cybersecurity is a layered approach. And if you approach it as a layered complementary strategy for your organization, let alone what you're doing personally at home, then you make it difficult for the guys on the outside to be able to try to break in. The more difficult you make it, they're going to move on and try to get to the easier hook to be able to land that bigger fish. But where they're going to wind up going is that supply chain. Right? When you're talking in business, they're looking for the weakest link. And when they find that weakest link, that's typically going to be on the smaller side of business. Think about it like a fishing analogy. You got the small fish that gets eaten by the bigger fish, that gets eaten by the bigger fish, that gets eaten by the bigger fish, right? And ultimately, you just continue to move up the ecosystem food chain. Same thing in cybersecurity. They're going to start with the small fish that's connected to the bigger fish, that's connected to the bigger fish, and they're going to saturate that environment with phishing emails, anything having to do with potential key loggers. If it's going to be a virus, if it's going to be attachment from an organization that they already have some kind of relationship with. And if your people are not trained, your people are always going to be the weakest link. PCs and Macs will only execute on what people click on and tell them, hey, do this. And if your cybersecurity measures don't complement that, and they're not the check and balance for what your people are going to do, then you're going to create a breach. On the other hand, if you continue to do cybersecurity education, right? Cybersecurity awareness is typically what it's going to be referred to. And a lot of state organizations. So like I live in Indiana, state of Indiana, we have some basic learning measures that are provided by the state that can be free, that are accessible to any user that's a resident in the state. Other states do the same thing. Is it comprehensive and always the most up to date? No, but it's a good foundational component to be able to use that can help a lot of family members. But that translates into what you're doing for a business standpoint as well. So the more that you can understand, this is how my business works. These are the tools that I want to be able to standardize on. Then you should be able to find, and most leaders, right, they're sitting in the leadership chair because they have the ability to make more solid decisions than risky ones. Everybody makes mistakes, but typically you're in the leadership chair because you've made more good decisions than bad ones. You've got to have direct conversations with a partner that specializes in this space and feel out, does the culture fit match on both sides of the fence? If it's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to go with these guys because they sound like they know what they're talking about, but you don't understand the organizational culture, what typically happens, you wind up with turnover, and you're going to change this organizational standard to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And you're just creating exponential gaps and opportunities if you're not going to step into that and put that oversight into it on a regular basis. You got to talk to people. You got to make sure cultures and expertise align with the direction of your business strategy, where you want to be able to go. And if they feel complementary, you get some good references from people that you also trust, and you invest in that relationship. And it should be a relationship then you have an opportunity to establish long-term standards, scalability, and that gives you the best chance to be able to develop a solid strategy that helps protect your organization, your people, and ultimately long-term, right, business wealth and raise your EBITDA. Because the goal is to grow your business, not just hold on for dear life.
Absolutely, Brian. Absolutely. Let me understand it. Suppose, as an organization, as a leader, I am scaling fast. I want growth, I want speed, and as well as, the best tools. Where do I get these tools from? Because tech and AI are the most political tools that have become in today's time.
Yep.
And so, will I have to look at tools locally, expertise globally, but tools locally? Because my thoughts has to only be for a particular country. If everybody and it can look at vulnerabilities at others, but you can't look at it because it's been suddenly become political. Likewise, so many tools. You see this how politics has crept into technology, either in terms of AI or in terms of chips or whatever it is. Then how do you or what do you suggest in a global environment like this for countries or companies who are in countries and they want the best of tools and technology in terms of cybersecurity? How do I do that? Because my thought is also there. It will find out my zero-day vulnerabilities I cannot find.
Yeah. So part of that is going to be the alignment with the organization that you choose to partner with and asking how they provide oversight for themselves. What are additional auditing measures that they take to make sure that the solution overall that they're providing you is going to give you the best level of protection without inhibiting productivity of your staff, right? There's got to be a balance between hitting my security marks, but also keeping my staff forward, moving forward, thinking. And if you have an organization that tries to validate what they're doing for you with the number of help desk tickets that they're working on and responding to you in an average time frame, at the end of the day, number one, they're transactionally focused, and two, they're not business results focused because they're valuing the volume of response that they're taking from your team, which also detracts from their opportunity for productivity, right? They're spending more time calling help desk to be able to try to resolve an issue than focusing to the mission of the business and driving business goals and growth. So it's not necessarily, and some people may argue with me about that, and that's okay. I like to learn too. But, and as my wife likes to remind me, I'm not always right. But it's not about having the best tool. It's about having the most secure and productive solution overall. So don't focus to just the tool. I have that conversation with a lot of people about AI, especially. I had one organization flat out tell me, Brian, I want to rip this particular tool. I'm not going to name names right now, but I want to rip this tool out of the computer, throw it out the window and watch its circuits burn in the middle of the street. I said, that's a bit of a strong reaction. Can you tell me why? Because I like this tool better. There was no justification for it. There was no reasoning behind it other than they're more comfortable with one tool over the other. They understand what it does for me, not for we, not organizational benefit. So have a conversation around the solution, not focusing specifically to a particular tool overall. Unless you're a homeowner, if you're talking about on a personal level as opposed to a business level, that's a little bit of a different conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely, Brian. So when you talk about that, if you pair growth with security and smart use of AI, you are in a very good, strong position. What does that mean? Growth with security and smart use. What is smart use of AI here, Brian?
Yeah, so an intelligent use of AI or a smart use of AI would be understanding, begin with the end in mind. This is what I need to be able to provide for my team. Also understand where your team is overall on their technology adoption, right? What their comfort level is. And also realize that, especially when you're talking about AI, you've got to have a secure foundation that lies underneath it. It can't be about what tool I like to be able to use for myself. It's, does this complement my already existing cyber strategy? And if I have a question, or if I feel like, as soon as you ask that question of yourself, you don't have the confidence in that foundation. So go back to your provider, go back to your team, go back to whoever that is that you're working with to develop your technology strategy and your cybersecurity strategy, and have that frank and direct conversation. I want to use AI to get to this specific result. How am I going to get there? And if it's going to be a high level, no detail kind of conversation that lies underneath it, that typically gives quality leadership questions. The more questions you have and gray area you have, you should start to shift away or talk to additional expertise in that particular area until you can get to a place where you've got a comprehensive strategy that complements itself and your team and your organizational culture. So look at an AI and say, I want it to achieve this for my operations team. Operationally, I want to get to additional efficiency. I want to be able to reduce the time for customer delivery or customer service response time. Or I want to be able to enhance my sales activity, and I want more visibility into my pipeline. Find that end goal. Make it a low-hanging fruit. Test it within a single team with a tool that can provide that and complement your cybersecurity strategy, and then test it, beta test it. Make sure that low-hanging fruit produces a result. Once you can see that that result is heading in the direction that you've defined as success, whether that's going to be revenue generation, that's going to be tied to a KPI associated with maybe time for response. It's going to be associated to a KPI maybe with pipeline accuracy, closing deals, the deals forecasted, revenue accuracy, things along those lines. Whatever that KPI is that you have in mind, make sure that you're on that path to be able to achieve that goal. If you can do that, and again, complemented by your cybersecurity strategy, so it's a safe and scalable use of AI, now you've got something to be able to continue to build towards.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what are the general questions you get asked in today's time, Brian? And what are the challenges that you yourself face when dealing with those questions?
It's a great question. So typically what I wind up getting is, Brian, what's your favorite AI tool? And my typical response is the right tool for the right job. I mean, if it's going to be, I'm in a Google ecosystem and I like to use Grok, well, how do those two line up, right? Gemini is a great solution inside the Google ecosystem because it can complement the cybersecurity strategy. It's already linked to the particular productivity within the Google suite. It was designed for it. So why are we not taking a look at that first and foremost? And then if we can discount it for valid reasons, let's move on to a different discussion. Again, it's not about me, it's about organizational. So it's more of a we focus. If you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, we should be looking to Copilot initially. Copilot, with the capabilities of how it ties throughout the entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem, can inherit a vast majority of the security permissions that are already set up. I say vast majority, doesn't automatically inherit everything. There's additional oversight that has to be put in, set up, data cleansing, things along those lines. But once you can set up the environment that way, Copilot gives you the ability to be multimodal, multi-model, where you can tie into different models on the back end, depending on the goal of what you want it to be able to achieve, while still complementing the cybersecurity strategies that are already in the ecosystem. So why aren't we looking that way? The other questions I typically get are going to be something along the lines of, why do I need cybersecurity? I always love hearing that one. You want to make me break out in a cold sweat? Ask me that question. But, you know, it's all about trying to be able to protect your company's reputation. It's also liability associated to your organization, which can increase your cyber insurance policy risk, creates HR policy nightmares. It creates all kinds of cultural dynamics that are going to be more towards the negative if we don't have the right policies in place to allow people to achieve their goals, what that particular team is trying to be able to aim towards, company growth initiatives. But it also puts your clients' data at risk. And like you mentioned earlier, AJ, if you wind up seeing those notices coming through from organizations saying, sorry, we had a breach, and now you're out there on the dark web for the rest of your life, typically you have a negative reaction to that. Most people do not just take that and go, oh man, another one, whatever. They then have to take steps to continue to protect themselves, two-factor or multi-factor authentication, different types of antivirus, malware, anti-cryptoware, things along those lines. Do I need a firewall, my wireless access points, all those things? It makes it complicated for home users, but it's still something that home users need to be aware of. Now you scale that up to an enterprise type organization, additional training, additional investments, infrastructure, all those different things that go into it. That has a different effect on profitability, long-term strategy. And if you're trying to build your organization towards, I want to sell it, well, you're going to take a hit on that particular sale. And that can affect salaries and increase in wages, things along those lines. So it's got much larger, long-ranging effects than just, oops, I had a breach because I didn't take the right steps and invest up front. Does that help?
Absolutely. Brian, one last question is, how do you see the coming future, say in the last 1 year to 2 years? Is cybersecurity going to be a nightmare, or is it going to be a beautiful world for companies in terms of cybersecurity?
I like how you phrase that. It's going to continue to be a challenging environment from organizations on my side of the table to be able to continue to deliver solutions that do not inhibit productivity or create additional hoops for organizations to jump through to keep moving forward. I think one of the biggest challenges that I can foresee right now is, and this goes back to your last question, Brian, which tool do I use? Right? How secure is this particular tool inside my environment? Because I've got a lot of users that they like this tool, they like that tool, they like this tool, this guy uses this tool, this guy's using free stuff. How do I guide my people towards what an organization or my organization needs to do? And that's quite honestly where leaders earn their seat and earn their salaries, making some of the tough decisions and saying, this is the tool, this is why. Now we need to craft those HR policies to be able to complement, get that over to our tech team to make sure that our tech team is going to be putting the policies through technology to enforce those particular things, and then invest in education and upskilling for people. From a leadership standpoint, it is a number of different steps, and you've got to have trust within your own leadership team, and you guys have all got to be on the same page. What we're going to do, why we're going to do, how we're going to measure success, and move it forward on a regular basis. The next thing down the road is going to be how quantum computing, probably right now, the projections are about the next 10 years, coupled with AI, is going to affect organizations. But over the next 12 months, steering towards standards with cybersecurity that complements your AI strategies so that your organizations can grow and your team remains productive. That's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. Who is your ideal client, Brian?
You, AJ, or I would say anybody in the, honestly, the S moving up into the M space, typically organizations of between 25 to 500 users who have a growth mindset. If they understand business growth strategy and they see a value in technology, I think typically we're a great fit. We couple with that leadership very well. And those particular organizations, we continue to see them grow, and they're acquiring other organizations. So we're a part of that strategy. Those would be organizations and leaders that we enjoy working with.
Absolutely. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Brian, and I'm sure a lot of leaders, a lot of companies, a lot of perhaps, HNIs also would want to connect with you and learn more from you, how you can help them. What's the best way for them to do so?
The first place would be look me up on LinkedIn. So Brian Beck on LinkedIn. You'll find me in Indiana at ProcServe Solutions. I try to make it easy to find me, but I connect with leadership and the right people associated to it. The other way is check out our website. Go to ProcServe, PROXURVE.com, and check out a little bit more about us. And if it looks like a good fit for your organization, then reach out. We have the info link there, and I'll follow up back with you. We'll have a conversation, see where it goes.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, AJ.